cops ain't shit to me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that song, I was just revisited that. It's so hard. And honestly, like, you know, he's one of my favorite dudes on earth and some of my best memories, all the guys we talked about, including you guys, you know, but Graham, it was such a cool time in all of our lives. Not to beat a dead horse or priziest horse, but I was going to talk about motherfucking Soul One, Young Soul, Tim Holland. I mean, you know, we can't talk about Alias without talking about Soul. And, you know, I'm self-admittedly, you know, at a time was the biggest anticon nerd. And so I was working in Orlando at a record store called fucking Sonic Boom. You think Crate is a cool name? Sonic Boom, dude. That's amazing. But whatever. It was a small record store that I convinced this guy to let me work at. And this is like, you know, 99-ish, I want to say. And I had somehow convinced this dude, Chris, who like, he loved the Rolling Stones. And that's all, you know, he was like a rock guy and would like trade and bootleg like crazy Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead tapes. I mean, this guy had a bunch of really cool shit, but he was totally into, you know, he knew there was a young hip hop community, Swanberger, Jerk Circuit, all the homies, you know, that I was around in Orlando, fucking Spy Tech, 1200 Hobos, SPS. There was a lot of people interested in cool hip hop shit. Diplo was buying records from this record store, you know, Diplodocus. So he convinced me to be the record buyer, and I would just like, I would get this list and look through all the hip hop releases, and I stumbled upon, you know, so backtrack. I was a huge Funk Crusher Plus fan. I fucking loved Company Flow. Diplo actually played me The Fire in Which You Burn. That it was on a mixtape. That and that shit blew my fucking mind. And you know, I was a rapper at the time. When I heard Funk Crusher Plus, it was the kind of shit that like you listen to and you don't want to write anymore. Everything you said has been completely negated and erased. All my thoughts and style that I thought I had was nothing. That's what Funk Crusher Plus did to me. And I say that because when the first thing I heard of Soul was Dear LP. It was the LP diss track, and it was a fucking 12-inch. And we got it in the record store, and I immediately was like, yo, it's this. And like, I gotta say, 100% trash. I fucking hated it. I was like, this dude is gonna get destroyed. And like a week later, he released Linda Tripp. Is that what it was called? The LP's rebuttal to Dear LP. And, you know, in my opinion at the time, and I can even still say, like, Soul had a fucking amazing diss song, and whoever writes a diss song and puts it on 12-inch to, like, one of the most monumental artists, you know, LP, Company Flow, that is balls, you know? And so I respected him. I was like, I don't know who this dude is. This is crazy, but this song sucks, and LP totally demolished him. And, you know, for, like, a little period of time, I put him out of my head. You know, then Bottle of Humans comes out, and we got the vinyl at the store, and you know, it in another way, in a newer way, completely blew my mind. Because whereas Def Jux was on that, like, Company Flow was amazing, and you know, that Company Flow record was like blew my mind, but it was in this like, it still had this like tough guy New York vein of rap that I had listened to my whole life but couldn't yet connect to personally. On the flip side, Anticon, and specifically Bottle of Humans, you know, the first time I put on the single and heard the sample, I've been so many places.
Again, Alias production, by the way.
Alias production, absolutely. And everything Tim said in that song and the way he said it, once again, blew my fucking mind, made me go back and rethink everything that I thought was cool, everything that I thought I was doing personally, the way I was looking at the world. And you know, from then I just attached myself to Anticon and immediately bought Deep Puddle Dynamics, you know, Through the Looking Glass, all the first original Anticon releases, and went on to become, you know, at the time, lyrics-wise, I was a lyricist. You know, I would stand and watch a band, and I wouldn't even see the drummer or the guitar player or like think about what they were doing. I would just stare at the singer, the vocalist, the rapper, and just pay attention to everything they said, the inflection of every word, how they connected words, how they said things, what they said. And for me personally, and I know a lot of people didn't like it, but Soul's style on Bottle of Humans and then on, you know, Selling Live Water just was everything to me. He was like a poet. He was funny. He was flippant. You know, he was on some fuck you shit. The way he didn't rhyme his words, because he's like, this is just the way I'm going to jam all this shit together. And if at the end of the line, it somehow lines up in my head, but it doesn't rhyme to you, like I don't care with 100% confidence. And honestly, I mean, my style was very much based on that, you know. And I like to think that I pulled in pieces of my own, but for me, soul was it. It was everything. He was also when I reached out to him to come to Orlando to play a show, he emailed me back and was like, "Yo, I heard some of your music from Grand Buffet, and we should do a song together." And I was, you know,
You were on Selling Live Water, right?
I wasn't on Selling Live Water. I was on Live from Rome, which came later.
Live from Rome, yeah, okay.
Collaboration was the Lord Grunge produced another Super Mario Kart Brothers drive-by, and it was on Sloppy Doctor. You know, and again, dude took me on tour, showed me some crazy shit. You know, when he came on with Man's Best Friend, you know, he was like one of the production. You know, he was getting all this beautiful technical production from Alias, from Gel, you know, from all the Anticon dudes, and then he turned around and was like, "I'm going to produce my own like ghetto tech, junky, noise-based, you know, like fucking wild self-produced albums from the whole Man's Best Friend." His catalog goes so deep, you know, and then even in the later years, working with the Skywriter Band, you know, they made some monumental albums. I know people still go back to You're the Sex Symbol, you know, and I was just like looking on his Spotify as to what was popular, and it's weird to me, like what is the most played, because it's not shit that like I find, you know, historical, but he has such a crazy catalog. And I also super admire the way that later, you know, after the fall of Anticon, he just figured out a way to like carve out his own niche and his own fan base, and I'll forever respect him for that too, and just continue going. Like, dude didn't get a regular job. He fucking flipped a house in Colorado and bought a farm in Maine, and now he has, you know, these podcasts about like anarchist farming and like the cultivation of seeds, and the way he's just managed to just like stay in that lane.
That makes him so real in what he's doing. I love the way he flipped at some moment. He started flip those famous rap songs.
Absolutely, man. He was doing mixtapes.
You were on that one.
You know?
You were on that one of my favorite ones. I sometimes go back to that video, the one with you and Kiki, where you guys on the golf carts. Like, it's fucking.
Oh, dude, that was a whole project that we made, but it was right around that same time because we featured on No One on the Corner. It was a Lil Wayne song, Swagger Like Us.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. And then I can't remember the group, him, me, and Kiki. It's called not the Branch Davidians or the David Koresh. You'll have to edit in the name of that group. We put out an EP. Oh, the Waco Boys. That's what we were called.
From the whole Anticon era, I think like the songs that stand out for me the most, and they're like the most obvious ones as well, are Plutonium, Bottle of Humans, and what's the first one on Selling Live Water? The Cops Ain't Shit to Me, that one.
Yeah, not Salt and Everything.
The realest, the baddest poet.
Yeah, the baddest
poet. Yeah, that song is fucking amazing.
The Cops Ain't Shit to Me.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that song! I was just revisited that. It's so hard, and honestly, like, you know, he's one of my favorite dudes on earth, and some of my best memories. All the guys we talked about, including you guys, you know, but Grand Buffet, Soul, like some of them. It was such a cool time in all of our lives, and to be interacting with these dudes, like, I mean, all over the world. So this memory right here, that was the night Ronald Reagan died.
Oh shit!
And this is us. We're in Stockholm. Funnily enough, we're in your. Is it showing up there?
Yeah. Keep it like that.
Somebody just came backstage and told us, it was right before our show, that Ronald Reagan died, and that's us jumping for joy. And there were this is the wildest thing ever. There was a stage set up on the roof of the National Art Gallery. That's in like the center of Stockholm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's a huge art gallery, like 5-6 stories. There was a summer stage on the roof, and Soul was headlining the end of like this like 3-day like festival show. All these things colliding. Like that Ronald Reagan died. We're playing this amazing show on the roof of this art gallery, and the next day, like the next morning, the fascists were going to march on Stockholm. And you know, Soul was like always known as super left wing. So I just remember the crowd was fucking crazy. Just like all these, like, you know, before we knew Antifa, as they like to say it, but they were like Antifa, Black Bloc, anarchist Swedish rap kids, and they were like fucking. There was a pit. We ran out of merch to sell, and they were like just making me sign their arms with marker, and they were all coming up to Tim and just being like, tomorrow, like, we're marching against the fucking fascists, and like this is getting us fired up, man. And I just remember like singing all those songs, and I had backed Soul up on that because it was like towards the end of the tour, and both of us were tired, and he's like, yo, will you like back me up on my choruses. And of course, it was like, you know, a dream come true for fucking nerdy little Bleubird. And just one of the most amazing shows in my life. Amazing dude. I think his boldness with everything, with his style, with his label, you know, he pushed things to the edge and even over the edge. And, you know, he'll forever be remembered for that. And, you know, Anticon and beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome. I was also at South by Southwest later on when he met LP again for the first time. K to I, me and a bunch of people forced him to go into a Def Jux showcase. And it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, because
nobody cared.
Yeah, nobody cared, right?
Yeah, nobody cared. And, you know, Def Jux was doing really good at that time, and you know, nobody cared. And Dibbs was touring with LP at the time, who was fucking Tim's homie, you know, and there's, you know, throughout all that time and everybody who had beef with each other, it's funny because there was always people who were homies with everybody in those different camps, you know.
Yeah. All right, Marcus?
Yeah, one more thing about Soul and you, Bird, is that I think Atheist Jihad is one of my favorite like rap songs, like all categories. I fucking love that song.
Thank you, man.
Another one of the songs that I'm not sure if they aged correctly. I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it didn't age correctly. It's in the same realm as America's.
Yeah. It's not that on the nose though. It's a little bit more like subtle, I think, than like, other stuff. Like,
I just remember him and I, like, most of that was recorded like side by side, just holding the pair of headphones, just like scream rapping and then uncontrollably laughing. It was awesome. A really fun time. You can hear it. You can hear the energy on the recording.
Yeah, it's wild.
That song.
It's not a clean song, you know, at all. That's what I love about it. It's
that's something that I'm going to be revisiting after this.
Man, you know what? And him and I owe him a phone call. We haven't spoken in a long time. I saw him a couple years ago, right before he moved to Maine. But we joked about always doing Atheist Jihad Part 2, and, you know, just the nail in both of our coffins, I think. It would be.
That's positive.
Yeah, right.
This is Atheist Jihad. We actually say Booyaka. Oh, that song is so just over the top. Just belligerent, I think, is how you would describe it.
Yeah, I have one more thing I want to talk about, and I don't know how this is going to play out, but do you guys know about Shuggie Otis? Shuggie Otis.
Shuggie
right,
Otis.
So I just kind of got into him recently.
You mean this guy?
Damn.
You prepare that one. Right, so Shuggie is this guy he came up in like the late 60s, early 70s in California, contemporary to, you know, Hendrix and the Laurel Canyon scene and all that stuff. He played with Zappa on Hot Rats. He played like a bunch of stuff as a session musician. He grew up, like, his dad was a record producer, so he started playing guitar when he was like 11 years old, playing live shows and all that stuff. And then his debut record came out in 1971. It's called Freedom Flight. And it's a record where, you know, where I heard it. It's one of those records that, you know, I have a handful of those where you just listen to every single song. And you just, like, there's no point of skipping anything because you don't really want to miss anything. You know, there's a handful of albums that I like in that way. And this is one of them. And it's just so weird and kind of eclectic for coming out in 71. It's kind of a mix of whatever, blues, R&B as it were back then. And it's a really cool record. And most known for a song called Strawberry Letter 23. The Strawberry Letter 23 is mostly known for being sampled by, like, people that we really look up to. Like, Outkast used it from Miss Jackson. They used the kind of melody from Miss Jackson. The Alchemist used it. Ghetto Boys sampled it. DJ Quick. Like, it's one of those songs, and when you hear it, just like, all right, whatever rap song you were into at the time, I know this from that. It's been sampled so many times. And but I felt like I didn't really know much about him other than that song, so I just got into his shit, and it's so good. Like, I don't want to skip anything. He is a guitar player, but he's also, like, the first record, he's kind of finding his voice in a way. He's really like what we refer to as alternative today. But, you know, he was at the same time as Beefheart and Zappa and them, so it kind of makes sense. But it was more like he had huge success with that record. So when he's going to make his next record, I think it was an Epic. And instead of getting an advance for the record, he just said, you know what, build me a fucking studio in the back of my house. in my garden, and I don't need an advance or anything like that. And just built my studio, and he started working on his next record, which is like he did everything himself, you know, engineering, producing, right, like everything himself, just the way he wanted the record to be made, and he didn't give a fuck about what people thought it was going to be. He, you know, he got offered to join the Rolling Stones, like as a guitar player, lead guitar player of Rolling Stones back then. He said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do my own shit. Quincy Jones came to him and said, I want to produce you. And he said, no, I'm going to do my stuff. So he just made this other record, Information, Inspiration, or Inspiration, Information. I don't know if I get that right. But it's really good as well, because it's like a weird, eclectic mix of sounding like, you know, B.B. King on one track and then fucking Christopher Cross on the next track. And he's just like, yeah, it's so weird. It's all over the place, but it really works. And you can totally see his influences, other than everybody sampling him today. You can see his influences like, well, Prince, like 100%. He would picked up things from Shuggie Otis, and you know, Thundercat, and what these guys are doing is totally in line in what he was creating back then. So that record kind of flopped because nobody wanted to, you know, he was riding high on success, and he just did a weird album just because he wanted to. And then it just fell off the map for like 30 years. I didn't do anything until last year. And no one really knows, I think, what he did. He was just like working on his dad's stuff, just fucking laying down guitar here and there. But those two records are really standout records for me. I recommend everyone to check out Shuggie Otis. I don't, you know, for being what he was back then and what he did for music as we look at it today, I don't feel like he's getting at all the recognition he deserves.
And is there a certain song, like, except for like maybe the major hits, that you're like, that's the song that you?
I think Freedom Flight is his best song. It's like a 12-minute weird eclectic song, and this is 71, so people were, you know, not necessarily doing that stuff back then. They kept to, you know, like 3-4 minute blues songs, but that's just, yeah, it's just like experimental weird track that I listened to the other day, you know, in the mountains of Montenegro, and I'm just like, fuck, this could have been done today, and I would just love it, you know.
Where's he from?
He's from California, but a lot of people, I think, puts him as like New Orleans or something like that because of his style, or like R&B blues of the time. But then he goes off and does something really fucking weird, you know, and it works. It really works as a record. And I Freedom Flight, I think, is my favorite track of his. But Strawberry Jam 23 is an amazing song as well.
I'm familiar
and once
with
you hear the first 2 seconds of that song, you're gonna be like, oh shit, yeah, of course.
Cool, man.
That's amazing, dude. I wanna go back and listen to it. So that's one of the names that when you hear it, it sounds like it could be like a contemporary indie artist, but then it's actually like a 70s artist. And that is it called Strawberry Letter 23 that everybody sampled?
Yeah.
That's the one that I'm familiar with and I've heard. But for some reason, I never like dove deeper into his catalog.
Yeah.
And he kind of reminds me of, what's the Searching for Sugarman? Same thing. Everybody, you know, he was a dude that put out one album.
Rodriguez.
And everybody thought he was from like California, but he was from Detroit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It sounds like a similar story. And
sure. But if you want to, like, in terms of Shuggie Otis, like, you don't really have to go through his, you know,
just one record, the first record.
Discography, because it's like 2 records, and then he just didn't do shit for 30 years. And he's still touring. That's the funny thing. He's been touring the whole time, just playing like small crowds, and he just like avoided success at all costs by doing whatever the fuck he wanted to do, and saying no to the Stones and, you know, Quincy Jones. And it's an amazing story.
Cool. First, which I got a little bit more to say about, is Radical Face, which is somebody that all 3 of us can say something about, except for the fact that he had like a little bit of fame with his Welcome Home and like the way it got into commercials and stuff like that, which is kind of like the same way Alias had also one of those songs put in a commercial, if I remember correctly. And that was also the thing that he was known for in like on a mainstream level. But like, I think Ben has been consistently the artist that he wants to be. He has a very specific way of like working with guitar rhythmically, the way he puts in beats and stuff like that, in a hip-hop kind of way, but also in a folk singer-songwriter kind of way. He comes from that kind of world. He did everything by himself, if I'm not mistaken. I remember when we were working with him, he was working from his backyard, and he was like creating all that stuff. And you can kind of feel that, but in such a skillful engineering kind of way, the way he like was putting everything together, the way he was producing for other people, the way he was like so approachable, the way he was with his art, the way he's sketching, and the way he like works on his paintings and stuff like that. He's one of those guys that like in all the things that he does, he's so skillful.
Self-taught too.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't know how to describe it, but I've been watching till this day. I watch Belgian television, and sometimes a Radical Face instrumental would be in the back, and even if I don't know that it's a Radical Face instrumental, I know it's a song from Ben. He has such a specific style. My problem with this, and that's why I want to give him accolades, is like if you name the name Radical Face to people, people don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Until they listen to some of his songs, and they recognize it from either it's a commercial or it's from like a product placement or whatever. Like, I think the record Ghosts was like his record that like kind of made him break, and then like afterwards everything else, but also before that his 2 Electric President record
on More Music,
records on More Music, and like and everything he did afterwards, like the whole Family Tree trilogy and stuff like that, stuff that I still have on my playlist, and whenever it comes up I still listen to it, and I still like, I mean, I'm kind of a sucker for singer-songwriter, for like very like I'm very into like Phoebe Bridgers and Christian Lee Hudson and that kind of stuff, and like Will Oldham, and I think Radical Face, he's as good as those guys at like getting the recognition that he deserves in my opinion. And again, like he's a guy close to our hearts because he produced for Zucchini Drive in the past.
I think the like if you go on Spotify right now, the top 2 songs will always be the 2 songs he's on and produced by like a wide margin, so people do know about him, but maybe not to the extent they should.
I mean, he's had a lot of success, but like he's a dude who could still walk down the street and go to the grocery store without getting recognized. But he could also like pick and choose where he wants to tour around the world and has audiences everywhere. So he kind of like, he's right in that sweet spot. Mm-hmm. And so, do you remember? I brought a CDR of Electric President to Belgium with me, and I think I have a memory of like leaving it with you, because that dude like used to just be able to, even before I knew him personally, like you would email him and he'd just send you like every project. Like Chandelier Face was like a rap project he had, and Electric President, these were all like side projects to Radical Face, you know?
He was very active on forums as well, right?
Like message boards and forums, and even he was around on the early Anticon, like lunchroom message boards. He was there, and like you would just hit him up and he would send you a record. And I mean, his story, I don't want to tell his story because it's a whole thing, and I'm sure, you know, he could tell it better, but it's really amazing. Like, came from a pretty poor family, and like he didn't even have a bedroom because he had like, I don't know, 9 brothers and sisters, and like he slept on the couch. So he built this shed, like an unair conditioned, which he eventually got air conditioned shed out in the backyard. And that's where like he produced all those albums. And so he actually co-produced and mixed Cannonball for me. And that was all recorded in that shed, because it was right around the time that he was like finally moving out of his family's house into his own house. Cause you know, he started getting licensing from OC, Sprite, and then like the Nikon, the Google Chrome. Like he was the first dude I know that like I literally saw music licensing change his life, and like literally took care of his entire family, bought his family a house, you know, like the fucking dream. But one of the things that was amazing that I took away from him was when we were mixing the record, it was when he had moved into his own house and just had like his house was just like a studio, and then there was just like some beds, and he lived with his brother, and they just like kind of lived there, but it was more of a studio. And he was the first dude who like I saw had this regimented discipline based around music. Like, you know, he made his living off music. Music was his life. And, you know, I had a lot of friends who touring was their life, but for him, it was like production and engineering. So his life was like a schedule. He was really into being in shape, and he was working out because, you know, he was really, really wanting to get fit. So like you woke up at a certain, like he didn't hold me to his schedule as long as I was there for like the mixing times, but he'd be like, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm mixing projects with my headphones, whether it's for commercials or licensing. And then he'd be like, from 9 to 9:30, we're going to eat breakfast. And he had like a specific breakfast. And then he'd be like, at 9:30 to 10:30, we're going to go run ocean laps, which is when you get in chest deep in the ocean and you literally run laps in the ocean. So for like the week I was staying with him mixing my record, I'd be like, all right, man, I'll meet you for ocean laps. And we'd go run ocean laps. And then he's like, okay, this 2-hour block is for you to record vocals for your album. And then, you know, you can fuck off for a couple hours because I have this other, I'm going to go power lift. He's like, then we'll be back to do mixing from 7 to 8 p.m. And I mean, this guy's work ethic was literally from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. And then, he was a master Street Fighter player also. So he allowed himself, 1 hour in the evening to fucking play Street Fighter. And then he would be like, go sleep on my bed because I'm just going to sleep on the couch because I'm only sleeping for 3 hours. Then I'm going to wake up and start mixing again. Like, dude was so dedicated. And so it's like,
I love
the reason why he's so good at everything and how he got so far with it. He made it fucking happen,
And like the way he was making his videos and the way he was like, he had a very specific idea of what his art needed to look like. And I appreciate somebody who was like on all those levels is not only like good at what he's doing, but he's like actually the best at what he's doing. And like in all different disciplines, it's something very rare. It's not like something that is like, you can be good at playing guitar, but he has his fucking own sound. He has his own kind of visuals. And that's something just that is worth checking him out, I think.
True, but it's crazy that he doesn't get like his name doesn't hold such weight as people that are maybe not even as successful as him because dude like does very well.
Mm-hmm.
And,
maybe it's because I'm in Europe and I don't see that spot, but like I remember like names when we're talking about like touring acts that never like really broke and like were like still if they played a show they had big crowds. I'm talking about like TV on the radio or like an Animal Collective and stuff like that. But those are household names. I don't have the feeling like Radical Face is a household name for people. No. Like in a lot of commercials and a lot of
it
stuff.
It just goes so well with that within that sort of short video format. I used to work in broadcasting for many years and whenever like managing different channels and you see commercial breaks on all the channels all the time and for a good like 2-3 years, like every 5 minutes you hear one of his songs like coming home from this or that screen over there. I keep telling people like, that's a homie. We work with this guy. Like, sure, Sure. Like, he was just like literally just round the clock, man.
Sometimes hard to see like where is the level of like how big somebody is or whatever, but it doesn't matter. I think it's all about like who you have something to say about, and like I think Radical Face is one of those names that like even for the three of us is like somebody that holds up when it comes to that. So
absolutely,
100%, yeah.
Cool, man.
I learned so much. I got some homework. I got to read a book and listen to some Vertebrae.
Yeah.
I got a movie to watch and a record to listen to.
Oof, that's like 3 hours, dude. You better don't go home and get distracted by the family. Just watch it in the record store.